to part 2 of Homebrew Wednesday. I wanted to make sure that my first brew day of a Homebrew Wednesday was a full long video. And I'm filming this on Tuesday, you know, once I've composed my thoughts about brew day a little bit more. Because I'm going out to a New York City Homebrewers Guild meeting tonight to join the club. I've been part of the Yahoo group for a while, but I want to actually get to know more of the people, more than just the few people who I know around New York City who are members that I've, been drinking with at bars for a while. So the way I'm going to do this video, structure this video, is go through each part of brew day, and give you a little snippet of some things that went wrong and some things that I want to improve, just to make sure that this video is, even if it's long, at least it's concise and to the point. Starting off with the mash, one thing that went wrong was that some people, I know Puka NC does this, is he heats his mash water up a little higher, puts it into the cooler, closes the cooler for 10 minutes or so and lets it heat up. But when I did that, I don't know if I heated the water, didn't heat up the water high enough or what, or it lost temp going into a room temperature cooler, or my hose is too long, which definitely is too long. An overarching thing is that I have to trim my hoses. I ordered them long because you can't order them, if you order them too short, then you're stuck, you have to get new hoses. But, I ordered them too long, so I know I have to trim them. But also, the water was going into a room temperature cooler, so it lost a good amount of temperature. And by the time I let it heat up, it was at the temperature I needed it for matching. So obviously it was going to lose a few degrees with no grain to really hold everything in once I close the top. And there's being so much headspace there in a 10-gallon cooler. So, and then what I'm going to do next time is what some other people do is they put a gallon or so of boiling water in their mash tun for 10-15 minutes, and while their mash water's finishing heating up, and then they open their valves, take that water out, close the valve, and put the new mash water in, so that when they put that mash water in, their mash tun is already heated up. I think that will work better for my system, and just it'll sit better with me than just doing what I did and putting the mash water in at what I thought was a high enough temperature to warm up the mash tun. Then in the mash, one thing I did wrong to test my system was I put a heavy winter blanket over the top of the mash tun, which isn't a good idea to test your mash tun and how well it maintains temperature. Even though a lot of people use these Rubbermaid coolers and they like them, I still shouldn't have put the blanket over the top, and I really only lost half a degree, which is awesome. But it might not. And the next time I brew, I might just not put the blanket there and see how much time I lose, or start the mash 1 degree high, just in case I lose too much. At least I started it for the first few minutes on a higher temperature. But with the mash overall, once I corrected the temperature, and added the water, every mash was fine. I decided not to do a mash out as a result because I added so much water to raise the temp. I didn't want there to be too much water in there before I started the sparge. Yeah, so that's the mash. So in the sparge, the biggest problem beyond, when I was vorloffing, my hose was too long, so it was a little harder to gather it, and in the future it's going to need to be shorter, because the hose will need to be shorter, because otherwise it's going to be hard to do a full all-grain brew day on my own without having someone there helping me, even though I do like sharing my brew days with friends and family like I did this time. But either way, it was harder to do vorloffing, and it's the hardest thing with the sparge was, number one, I forgot to wrap a blanket around the sparging bucket, or my bottling bucket, which was feeding the sparge water. And number two, it was hard to really control the flow of the ball valve on my mash tun and on the bottling bucket. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way that works better for me next time, for sparging, especially if I want to fly sparge. And I know I got decent efficiency in the end, which I'll talk about later, but with my sparge, but I still want to, reconsider how I sparge. Next, with the boil, I collected like a little over 7 gallons, and I did move the pot onto 2 burners, which is why I like that I have a wide 10-gallon pot so it can fit on 2 burners. But in the end, I believe by the end, after a 90 or 95-minute boil, I was only down from like 7.2 gallons to like just under, you know, one. You know, it was only like maybe a gallon left, or maybe a little less with the, you know, because of trub and hops and whatever. But I feel that, you know, next time I want, you know, once I get my volume, you know, I should just stop there and not, you know, not push it to get too high, because I don't want to have to do a, you know, even if I have a good filter on my mash tun, I don't want to get 7 gallons or more every time and have to worry about doing a 90-minute boil with every homebrew. I should mention that I'm eating some spent grain bread that I made and drinking some French press coffee for now, and then I'll drink beer tonight. Yeah. So next time I think I'm just gonna make sure to try to only get 6.5 gallons or whatever my calculator says I should get for my boil, and stick with that. And if I get in the end 5.5 gallons, I don't mind, but I'd rather just be a little more exact with the boil, so I don't have to again worry about doing 90-minute boils with every beer I brew, especially because I'm brewing inside, and and I have to depend on my stove to get the nice boil, and it might not be as vigorous of a boil, you know, as it would be on a propane burner. So that's the boil. But overall, I was happy with how that went. Then in terms of transferring to the fermenter, adding the yeast, I definitely should have cooled the wort down a little more. My thermometer was saying 77, so I'm like, okay, let's transfer it in and lose a little temperature. But the problem with that was that not only was the room still warm, so that made my sample, which I filled up the tube for the sample for the gravity while I was transferring, just to, you know, make things go quicker. But the room was so hot, it warmed up the sample, which made it harder to take the gravity. So I was able to correct it, but still, you know, next time I'll cool it more and make sure that I take the gravity towards the end. But probably the big problem was that my closet that I have it in now is at 72 or 73, which is, you know, in the beginning of fermentation when it gets really warm, is not good, because it's going to take it longer to start and for the yeast to adjust. So the next morning, when I saw that there wasn't so much, really any activity beyond a few bubbles coming from the blow-off tube, I frantically added more water to the tub that I had the bucket in, and put frozen water bottles that I already prepared the night before just in case I needed it. I put towels around the bucket, you know, to draw up the coldness, and thankfully now it's maintaining between 68 and 70 on my thermometer that I put on the outside, so that's good. And I had a lot of fermentation jitters, definitely. I have to thank my friend Zach Christopherson, who's starting a brewery called Chain Reaction Brewing Company. I should shout them out. They're still putting their plans together, but they're pretty close, and he does brew some pretty awesome beer. So shout out to Zach Christopherson, who doesn't have a YouTube channel, but you should definitely check their Facebook page, Chain Reaction Brewing Company. He was helping me a lot. So I got a few mixed messages from different friends about how, stouts don't ferment as vigorously in the beginning because of the high mash temps. And I accepted that because I didn't know better, but then I spoke to Northern Brewer and they said that's not really true, because with a fermentation bucket it can leak CO2 no matter how tight you think it is. So in the end I did switch from a blow-off tube to an airlock, because I was nervous, you know, maybe I'd see more activity with an airlock, but I did see a little bit more, but not much. So in the end, after I spoke to Northern Brewer on their live chat on their website, they told me I could lift for a few seconds, open up the bucket fermenter, check if there's crowds, and then close it back up. So that's what I did. I opened the fermenter. There was a nice dark brown, beautiful stouty krausen on top. So I closed the lid back up, put the towels back up on it, you know, exchanged the water bottles for fresh frozen water bottles, and left it. And I think it'll be fine unless, you know, something goes terribly wrong. over the next couple weeks when it's fermenting. But overall, I think I'm good with that. So in the end of the day, you know, of course you guys, after you see both this video and part 1, can give me, you know, I'd appreciate as much feedback as possible, because, you know, I definitely need to tweak my system and my brewing techniques a little bit so that I'll be a little less nervous with each successive brew day. I do have more yeast in the fridge, you know, so I'm thinking of brewing a couple. I have 2 of the same, you know, Y yeast strain. I have another smack pack. I have a pack of SO4 and SO5, so I'm thinking of some other recipes to brew next. You know, maybe one is a clone of the Firestone Walker Wookie Jack Black IPA, or Black Rye IPA, I should say, which I love dearly. But I might actually blend that clone with a clone of Stone Sublimely Self-Righteous, just to blend the recipes together, because those are my 2 favorite black IPAs, and they have been ever since I first tried them. So, you know, that's on the horizon. But for now, this is what I thought about brew day, some of my experiences post brew day, and I'm looking forward to hearing some feedback from you guys. And I guess I'll cheers you with my spent grain bread and my coffee. All right, happy Homebrew Wednesday, and remember, so many beers, so little time. Cheers.